Jim. Isn't that amazing? Mike, and Jim. Thank you, guys. It's sometimes good to go away for a little bit and to be able to be part of worship from afar. Last week, it was afar England and in a parking lot where I could get Wi-Fi, and I watched the service. And I just want to take this time to thank everybody for all the work you do week after week that sometimes goes unnoticed. You are making a difference if you're participating in this service in any way. If you're bringing kids that are down here, you're making a difference. And for that, I am forever thankful. Last week's children's message was phenomenally touching and life-changing. So thank you all for what you do, and I appreciate that. Go ahead. Give yourself some. Erica and Pat and Joe and the whole gang is here at 7:30 it's just amazing what happens here. But today we're talking about reflections. Mirror, mirror on the wall, right? We're going to take a look at what we're reflecting in the world. And it was something that was addressed in the Bible on a regular basis. And Paul did it, James did it, and Jesus did it. And we're going to first start with one of my favorite texts, 1 Corinthians 13. I always like to say it's not just for weddings anymore. It is a text that we could use to help guide our life on a regular basis. In here, Paul says, "For now we see only a reflection as in a mirror. Then we shall see face to face. Now I know in part, then I shall know fully, even as I am fully known." Here, Paul is kind of talking a little bit about, this goes on to say love is patient, love is kind, all those things we read about in the Bible. But in the end, Paul says to us, we can only live life this way, and we can only see a little bit of it. So in the end, the most important thing to do in this life is to live with faith, hope, and love, and the greatest of these is love. James says this, he says, "Anyone who listens to the word but does not do what it says is like someone who looks at his face in the mirror and after looking at himself goes away and immediately forgets what he looks like. But whoever looks intently into the perfect law, which for Jesus was love, that gives freedom and continues in it, not forgetting what they have heard but doing it, they will be blessed in what they are doing." Soren Kierkegaard was a 17th century theologian, philosopher, smart guy. He studied to be a priest, or a Lutheran pastor, fell in love. None of those things worked out. He too had some kind of thorn in his life. They say Paul had some kind of thorn where he struggled in life. But for him, life was about the journey. He believed that we had taken Jesus and Christianity and tried to move it into a building called the church. I think he would have been a great gardener. For him, he was that our faith unfolds daily on this journey of life. And this is something that he said, which I so much love. Life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards. All right, I want you to do me a favor. Get out your phones. Get out your calendars. Get out a pen. Wednesday night. Come on, do it. I have never really told you exactly what to do before, and I'm going to tell you right now. Wednesday night at 7 p.m. It's Ash Wednesday. And at 7 p.m., we are going to share in a worship experience with Broad Ripple United Methodist Church and Metanoia. It is a very similar service put together very similarly as we did the one on the 20th of December, which was the longest night. And I have to tell you, I have had people who went to that service say it was one of the most meaningful services in their life. I want you to be there Wednesday night for Ash Wednesday to get the sign of the ashes on your hand and to start this journey outright. 7 p.m. on Wednesday. Now, in the event you cannot get there, or you know someone who would like to participate in an Ash Wednesday service but can't get out of their house, let me know. I will come. I'll bring my ash to them, and we will take care of them. Thank you, where they are. Come on, guys, wake up. All right. So really, I've never really asked you to do something like this. But I think Wednesday night is going to be a powerful service, and I want you to be there. Our band is playing, our musicians are singing. I want you to be there. So that's out of the way. And then we also start a week from today the Inspired study, which I talked about earlier. Inspired is by Rachel Held Evans, who at a very young age died recently. And she was one of the most progressive thinkers of today, who had a strong faith background. And Inspired is about her relationship with the Bible and how she understood the Bible and how she was just told to accept certain things that kind of drove her crazy. And then as she continued to grow, how the Bible was able to grow with her. Now, you may not be a Bible reader. I know I've had 2 people say to me, yeah, I'm not going to do that study because I'm just not that into the Bible. It's okay. You don't have to be into the Bible, and you don't even have to read this book. Download the study guide, which will help you explore your faith in a language that's important for you, which is what Lent is all about. It's exploring our faith and getting closer to God. I'm curious how many of you today looked in the mirror. You looked in the mirror, right? Why did you look in the mirror? Most of us looked in the mirror, right, to either get the war paint on for the day or to shave. Most of us look in the mirror to ensure that we are presentable for the world, right? That we look presentable, that we are presentable, and that we can get out into the world looking okay. Paul did the same thing. The mirrors were a little different, not quite as good as they are today. But he knew that our tendency would be to look at what the outside looked like and keep moving on. But he knew that in order for us to live a rich, full life, we had to be willing to look deeper within, not just on the exterior, but on the interior. And our lives needed to be led from the inside out with heart, faith, hope, and love, and to live life in that fashion. From Wednesday night to Easter morning, we're in this incredible thing called Lent. And for me, Lent gives us an opportunity to not just look on the mirror on the outside, like that beautiful song that Rachel sang earlier, but to really take a deep look within and to make sure that our lives are reflecting on the outside the faith, hope, and love that we have on the inside. It's an opportunity for us to be very intentional about the way that we choose to live. It's a time for adopting spiritual practices, trying something different in order to get closer to God. David Brooks is a columnist for the New York Times. You also see him periodically on the PBS and you hear him on NPR. You hear him. He's traditionally a conservative political speaker, but so I was really surprised to read this book. He has a book called The Second Mountain. And in his own way, I think he's addressing exactly what Paul says in that text today. Be careful to live your life in such a way that it's not just what you're looking at on the outside that matters, but it's the inside leading the outside. He talks a little bit about his own life and about how when he graduated from school, he had this desire to go up that mountain. We all know what that mountain is, right? What success looks like, where the career is going to be. I'm going to get married. I'm going to live happily ever after. And we make our way up this mountain. Now, for some people, you don't make your way up the mountain. You end up in what he calls the valley. People who their marriages don't turn out the way they want them to. Their careers don't turn out the way they want to. He says both of these experiences tend to bring a similar thing, which is either if you're at the top of the mountain or in a valley, when you reach a particular place, you say, wait a minute. Is this really the mountain I'm supposed to be climbing? Is this really the life I'm supposed to be thinking? So for him, he realized, or came to realize, and it sounds like for him it was pretty high up that mountain, that there was actually another mountain in life. And for him, he calls that the second mountain. On the second mountain, our life moves from being self-centered to being other-centered, which is where we truly find happiness. It's the place where we realize that all of these things that we thought we wanted, well, they're really not worth what we thought they were worth. He says on the second mountain, we find a way to embrace interdependence and not independence. On that second mountain, we explore what he calls the 4 commitments. The first is our relationship with our spouses or with our families or the people you call family. The second is the first is finding meaning and purpose for your life. The second is loving and caring for your spouse and family. The third is finding your vocation. Why has God given you life, breath, and movement, and how are you spending your time living into your vocation? And finally, what are you called into being to do? Why do you have life, breath, and movement? Here is this guy, this columnist, who is known for one thing, who has come to realize exactly what Paul said, exactly what Kierkegaard said, and really what Jesus said, is what we think on the outside really matters is nothing. And when you climb that mountain, sometimes that's the only time you realize that that's not what it's all about. It's all about interdependence, taking care of one another, loving your family and loving one another, finding your vocation and purpose in life. He shares this amazing story in his book about a young man who was a custodian or a cleaner at a hospital. This man cleaned every day, and for 6 months, there was a young man who was 21 years old who was in a coma, and his chances for recovery were not great. Day after day, this man's father was there with him. Day after day, the young man cleaned the man in the coma's room. One day, the father was out having a smoke break, and it was at that time that the kid went in to clean the room. When the father came back in, he didn't think that the room had been cleaned. So he searched down that young custodian, and he just nailed him and yelled at him for not cleaning his son's room. He was so angry for not cleaning his son's room. Now, the young custodian had 2 different options, right? Or maybe a few. The first would have been, you weren't there, right? I cleaned that room and you weren't there. Another would be, you weren't supposed to be treated that way. So he could have gone to his superiors, and he probably could have gotten the man in trouble. But there was something about this man being a custodian, making it his vocation, realizing the power of family and this father's love for his kid. And do you know what that young man, that young custodian did? He said to the father, absolutely, I'll clean your son's room. The father went back into the room, and the young custodian cleaned the room. And he did so with love, care, and compassion, realizing he was probably about the same age as the young man in the coma. This man found a way to being a custodian, being a way, a vocation, a way of life that was making a difference for the people he was with. Which is, we got to figure out how to live this life in such a way that we're making a difference, not down or later down the line, but as we live each day and look back at our lives. He's living the life of faith, hope, and love that Paul talks about. And he lives the life that Jesus said, hey, love your neighbor as yourself. How would you want to be treated if your son was dying? How would you want to be treating it if you were in this very difficult situation? He's figured it out. Now, what's interesting to me is the man who is the big guy, the columnist, realizes that what that custodian has is something he wants. I think Lent is a perfect opportunity for us to look at people who are living their lives that way and say, I want a piece of that. I don't know about you, but I want a piece of that. I want a piece where my judgment turns into grace. I want a peace where it doesn't even enter my mind to be judgmental, that I can be graceful and grace-filled, where I can be grateful and loving to others. As we start this Lenten journey, I want to encourage you. What inspires you? Be mindful. What am I inspired by? I want you to take a look at the mountains that you are climbing. Which mountain are you climbing? Because Lent is the perfect time for us to get back on track. Maybe you made some great resolution on January 1st and you totally forgot about it. Well, I love Lent because fasting is vogue right now from what I read in the magazines. Intermittent fasting is the thing to do. Well, then, gall darn it, do it if that's what works for you. As long as in doing it, you are doing it in a way to find out what you really hunger and thirst for in life. What you really hunger and thirst for. Last year, a woman I know decided to drink only water throughout Lent. She went through and figured out, a glass of wine out a day, Starbucks out a day. She was spending about 11 or 12 bucks a day on drinks, and she decided, nope, I'm going to do water. So all throughout Lent, she drank only water, and in the end took all the money, which was around 400 bucks, and decided to donate it to an effort that was important to her, which was Team World Vision. She was able to donate well over $400 to Team World Vision. She was also able to truly figure out what it was that she was thirsting for in life. Now, not only did she able to make that donation, but she was able to give in such a way that World Team Vision took notice, and they've asked her to be part of their efforts. See, she wanted to know what she was really hungering and thirsting for, and God gave it to her when she had the willingness to give up a glass of wine. 10 years ago, Andrew and I decided that when we were early on in our relationship, that we wanted to find ways to pray together because we're ministers and we should do that. And so we found this incredible app called Pray As You Go. It's prayasyogo.org. It's a 10 to 12, 14-minute exercise that you can do on a daily basis. And let me tell you, for about 10 years now, I get a nice cup of coffee in the morning. He comes up, we do the study together, and it's just 10 or 14 minutes, just the two of us, and a little bit of scripture and a little bit of song and a little bit of time just to say we are called to be faithful as individuals, as a couple. Funeral home that I can't remember the name. What is it called? In that downloadable study, which we'll have some available on Wednesday, and you can just really explore what it means to be inspired. There's a story about this guy who was one of the first guys to own one of the TV shops. In any case, a lot of people had a hard time figuring that out. And not only did they have a hard time figuring it out, but it was very expensive to get these TVs. So people became frustrated very quickly. And this man tells a story about how people would wait in line for him to open his shop, and they would come with the remote in hand and they would say, "This thing's not working." And they would yell at him, and he would try his best to try to tell them, "Well, I can't really show you how it works because your TV is back there and you are here and it's not really working." And things became so bad that he decided behind his checkout counter to put a great big mirror. He put a great big mirror so people could actually look at what they looked like when they were yelling at him. Isn't that interesting? Calmed him down a little bit. Then he had even a better idea. He took and he put just the picture of a TV onto the mirror. And he would then show the people how you would make this remote work, how you couldn't have things in between, and how you made the remote work to work in conjunction with the TV. In some ways, I think we as people of faith are a lot like those people. We have the remote in hand. We have the ability to connect with the source. But we're so busy ranting and raving and saying that this doesn't work that we don't realize we have the answer right here and right here. As we step into this journey of reflection, do me a favor, and the next time you get angry, put a mirror up and say, "What's this about, God? What mountain am I climbing? And how are you going to seek to inspire me?" Let me tell you, if you just take a few minutes, you'll see that whatever was right here and so angry will change dramatically if you connect with the source. God wants to impact your life in a very real way. All you have to do is be willing to say, "I'm on board." So I look forward to seeing you Wednesday, sharing in this powerful experience. Again, if you have somebody who can't get out, or if you can't get out, then see me, and I will make sure that we have an opportunity for you to start this journey with us. Lent is more than that time between now and Easter. It's the time to truly connect with the one who loves you most. It's time for you to connect with what it means to be someone who lives with faith, hope, and love. Let's join this adventure together. Let's see what God has in store, and that indeed our reflection may be one of grace and love. Amen. We discovered when we were looking for videos on reflection, there are loads of movies out there. Like Harry Potter talks a lot about his parents within him that he never really got to meet and the reflection of them in his life. I encourage you to take a look at some of these movies. Mufasa, here's your dad, Simba. And often it goes back to how we're reflecting the love of a parent in our own lives. I think it's the same for all of us and God. Every time you see a parent in one of these movies, be mindful that image could be God.